So the atheist Christopher Hitchens was one of the more vocal darlings of the modern media era. You cannot visit a single atheist YouTube channel without witnessing one or more choruses joined in by a new atheist praise and worship team, reprising such memorable motifs as "How great thou art, our God Hitchen so smart, all the earth and all within are thine, our blessed Hitch, be now and forever, our greatest and best atheist Valentine." It's a sloppy, gooey, messy love fest, folks, but probably the element adorned with the highest comedic value, at least for me personally, is due to the proximity it shares with this irony, that these people who claim not only is there no God, but in no uncertain terms they pride exceedingly themselves with having become enlightened past the archaic Bronze Age need for a god or gods, waste no time in seeking out their own new personal gods to replace all the older traditional gods with. I guess it's kind of an aside here, an interesting little anecdote that sort of indicates that human beings were made to worship, were made to adore something, were designed to have a god. And that atheism really isn't what it claims to be. It's not. We have unequivocal proof that there is in fact no God. No, it's really not that at all. It's really, we don't like that God, or we don't like those gods. So we're going to create our own. It's just a really odd form of idolatry. You can find religious shrines to Christopher Hitchens set up in probably every comment section attached to an atheist video. Hitchens made a career out of his atheism, as many atheists do now. He loved to criticize Moses in particular. He loved to criticize the Ten Commandments. He really loved to point out that Moses, claiming to have received these commandments from God personally, wasted no time in breaking them. And herein lies Hitchens' ace in the hole, the hypocrisy of Moses, which stands into a slightly lesser or greater degree, of course depending on how you look at this stuff, as the hypocrisy of both universal belief and believer. Unfortunately, Hitchens wasted his entire life arguing a false premise, which is why his material, and indeed most atheist material that you'll find online, is geared towards an audience consisting of people who function on an 8th grade level. And among these atheists you'll hear words like intellect, intellectual, reason, rational thinking, logic, logical. You'll find these words quite liberally attached to Hitchens, as if he were an ancient Ephesian goddess, or a really weird type of human Christmas tree in need of adorning and decoration. But I want to very briefly explain why Hitchens was none of these things. Christopher Hitchens was not an intellectual. He was not reasonable. He wasn't rational. He certainly wasn't logical. Going back to the statement I just made about Hitchens' lifetime criticism of Moses, the Ten Commandments, and God, I stated earlier that Hitchens' entire life's work, if you want to graciously call it such, was based on a false premise. And this false premise, along with many other false premises and many other things, they unquestionably expose Hitchens as a charlatan and the real hypocrite of the story. For example, how could Moses disobey the Ten Commandments if Moses did not exist? If Moses did not exist, then Moses could not have broken the Ten Commandments. Thus, by forcing the comparison, and by extension the condemnation along with its many burdens upon Moses, Hitchens, by an overabundant lack of reason, and an unredeemable deficit of intellectual honesty, brings upon himself the very condemnation that he wishes his readers and listeners would place on Moses. See, there either literally and historically existed Moses as recorded in the biblical texts, or there only literarily existed Moses as a fictional character. Either way, the criticism must be of Hitchens. If you're going to apply rational thinking, logic, true intellectualism as the standard, then either way the criticism must be of Hitchens himself, because if Moses is a literal historical figure, then Hitchens' own worldview demands that his only critique of Moses could possibly be that he was a liar, since according to the atheist credo, God does not exist. Therefore, since God does not exist. God then could not have possibly given Moses the Ten Commandments. So Moses then is not this megalomaniac, psychopathic hypocrite who runs around committing senseless murders after God dictated and translated divine law, including one such law that according to Hitchens he continuously broke, and that's the sixth commandment, you shall not kill. Rather, Moses is simply just a liar. And anything else to be said about Moses, and criticism or condemnation of his behavior, must be directly placed at the feet of Moses himself and his own character. However, if Moses is a fictional character, then any critique of Moses is a literary critique only, and at best stretches incredulity as one who is actually baiting and switching incredulity for credulity as required to deliver a pre-fabricated and contrived judgment of a fictional and made-up character, not obeying real laws, which again were given by a fictional and made-up God. So then, therefore, the only constant here is the critique that must rationally, logically, and in pure intellectual honesty be rendered against Christopher Hitchens. Because in either and or both scenarios, it is Hitchens himself who is the liar, and whom cannot be given excuse or granted reprieve. For Hitchens himself has in both potential possibilities, whether Moses is a literal historical figure or whether Moses is simply a literary fictional character. He has in both potential possibilities leveled an intellectually dishonest criticism and condemnation directly against what he claims to be a fictional God, and indirectly against the fictional character Moses. But in doing so, he has heaped a very real criticism, an inexcusable condemnation, an inexhaustible condemnation upon himself, which in his worldview, his belief system, his atheism, among all these individuals, God, Moses, and Christopher Hitchens is the only real and tangible figure. The only way Hitchens' criticisms become valid is if God and Moses are just as real as Christopher Hitchens. Otherwise, the only laws broken here are the laws of reason and decency, and they are all broken by a very real Hitchens, who here, in this case, is the very real hypocrite.